Warning: this video may contain spoilers for movies you may or may not have watched. Proceed with caution. Animated features are my favorite kind of movies to watch, and no matter how you look at it, the best place to start with this medium is from the top of the pyramid where the Walt Disney Company has placed itself on. I've seen a lot of their animated movies by this point, and I thought it would be cool to make a video where I rank those from their most notable catalogs. From worst to best, we're going to be ranking the 61 films in the Disney animated canon, the 26 Pixar films, and another 5 units made under other Disney labels. We will not be going over any Disney movies that belong to any other categories, bringing us to a total of 92 units to talk about, available as of 2022. I hope you enjoy hearing my opinions, and without further ado, let's get this watch party going. 92. Dinosaur. This movie is a hybrid of computer animation and live action scenes, the former of which tried to follow the footsteps of Pixar at the time, and I appreciate the effort. Unfortunately, the actual movie is too boring and the color palette looks too dull for my taste. I found myself lacking any sort of connection with any of the characters, and the plot feels aimless most of the time. Whether the film is 2D or 3D animated, I believe that these aspects are more important. 91. Chicken Little. I'm a bit too old to enjoy this one if we're gonna have the theme of alien invasions and falling sky here. The film's references to The Lion King and Beauty and the Beast are quite shameless. The character designs are hideous, and I don't like how Buck Cluck tries too hard to be supportive towards his son by rubbing it in his face. Just a mediocre film overall with a mess of a plot. By the way, I hate this poster. What does it look like? 90. Melody Time. A streak of packaged films from the 40s is incoming. The films themselves are not bad, but certainly stick out like sore thumbs among the rest of the movies I'm ranking these against. And Melody Time in my opinion has the least memorable content. 89. Make Mine Music. Incredibly similar to the film we just talked about, but this time I can pinpoint the wolf and singing well segments as highlights, so I got the edge. The former of which even has an orange cat named Ivan. Who does that remind you of?
It's Ivan the cat. Hello, Ivan.
88. Fun and Fancy Free. A tale of a cute romance between two bears, followed by our favorite Disney mascots climbing a beanstalk and facing Willie the Giant. Don't mind the ventriloquist puppets. I love how the giant appears at the end and lifts the house roof. 87. Winnie the Pooh. The poor Pooh Bear just wanted honey, but his quest is unnecessarily padded by an entire plot driven by a misunderstanding, and Christopher Robin had to sort everything out by himself in the end. The funny thing is that the actual Paxton is such a good character. I feel like this film was a deliberate attempt to kill traditional animation, while at the same time succeed in the box office due to the fact that most kids love Winnie the Pooh. Me personally, I didn't grow up with them. 86. Cars 2. Mater works much better as a sidekick than he does as a central character. He doesn't get much character development, and I found the espionage plot to be a little confusing and uninteresting. The animation and action sequences are pretty good, but overall, this movie lacks an important ingredient that makes Pixar films great. 85. Valiant. Good action scenes but jokes fall flat. Animation is mediocre. 84. Lightyear. I was disappointed with this film because of how frustratingly average it is. The whole way through, this film relies on socks to carry its flat entertainment. Not only did he never even have a presence in the main Toy Story franchise, but Buzz is also portrayed way too insecure for a hero, which leads me to think this is not the exact film Andy watched in 1995. The whole thing with the villain also makes no sense. 83. Strange Magic. This film is a weird double-edged sword. Buck King is such a fantastic and complex character, going from antagonistic to being the protagonist's husband. However, I don't like the glowing songs, the plot is really messy, and there isn't enough magic to warrant the title. Beauty and the Beast did a better job at the whole topic of loving someone from the inside. 82. Saludos Amigos. A spirited love letter to Latin America. It's really short and feels more like a travelogue than an actual movie, which makes it very forgettable. 81. The Sword in the Stone. The majority of this film feels aimless, and the titular Sword in the Stone is absent for the vast majority of it. Entertainment in vain. Arthur was going to become a king regardless, and the crown doesn't even fit over his head. Not even his own self-doubt was elaborated on further. The showdown between Merlin and Madame Mim was pretty cool. 80. The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad. One of the most decent of the package films. They give you two plots to keep you on your toes, but lack any moral. I love how open for discussion Ichabod's fate is. 79. Fantasia 2000. A lot shorter and more of a breeze than the original Fantasia, and it uses CGI more predominantly. I also don't mind the celebrity cameos. My favorites were Penn and Teller. Really, the only reason this is so low on the list is because of the inclusion of the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment from the original film, completely unedited. Most people liked it for nostalgia, but for me it was like a slap in the face just to bolster the runtime. 78, Home on the Range. Not as low on the list as you might have expected. Of course the childishness brings it down, but otherwise the film is decently entertaining. It's basically bounty hunting with cattle, and the bounties themselves are good characters. 77, The Black Cauldron. I am not familiar with the original novel at all, so I just thought it was decently entertaining the whole way through, even though Tyrion can be pretty annoying. The plot has its promising stakes going for it, but you probably won't want to rewatch it after it's over. 76. The Three Caballeros. Superior to Saludos Amigos. I enjoyed the Mexican theme as a Mexican myself, and the film goes absolutely insane towards the end. But like the rest of the package films, it's forgettable otherwise. 75. The Wild. Not too bad. Has a simple but goofy plot, and it's in some ways similar to The Lion King. I am not Team Madagascar, so I don't really care how similar this film is to that, to be honest. It's more about how it holds up by itself. 74. The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. It has a lot more to offer than the sequel in terms of adventures, and the characters are not as degraded. My favorite part was the forest flood. 73. Sleeping Beauty. Aurora is 16 but looks like she's 21. I found her and Prince Philip to be really flat characters, and the plot seems to be built more around the fairies than anything else. Get some points for the fantastic ending. 72. The Brave Little Toaster. A very innocent film that was made by many of the staff at Pixar Animation Studios several years before they started making 3D animated films. The film itself looks about as dated as a 1930s cartoon, and all the appliances get just as much attention as the titular toaster. It still does a great job at keeping you on your toes. 71. A Bug's Life. Not the most emblematic Pixar film. The plot panders a lot, but overall, a lot better than I remember. The portrayal of Hopper as a villain is fantastic. 70. Cars 3. A much more proper sequel to the first Cars movie that builds upon what was established, and this time it tells a story that's slightly meandering from the point of view of a veteran instead of a rookie. Let's just say that I really hope they never make a fourth film. 69. Fantasia. This one was a breakthrough in the animation department. You can have this on in the background while doing other things, since there's only visual flair and not much of a plot. In this sense, maybe a bit too long for my taste. 68. Robin Hood. I'm not sure why they wanted to portray Robin Hood as a fox, but I'm all for it. More of his relationship with Maid Marian would have been really nice to see. Also, why is the villain so pathetic? He literally sucks his thumb. 67. Cinderella. Perhaps one of the first things that comes to your mind when you think about a princess film. It's a pretty solid watch. I love how Cinderella's dress is made by the mice. 66. Alice in Wonderland. This film is a colorful, crazy trip. It does not disappoint from what one's idea of the fantasy novel is. I wish the White Rabbit was more than just a plot device though. 65. The Princess and the Frog. A traditionally animated film that was released 50 years after what it looks like, which is pretty cool. Lois and Ray are my favorite characters, and Dr. Facilier is an epic villain. 64. Dumbo. Very cute, short and sweet. Timothy makes an excellent sidekick. I do have to say, it was pretty grim to see Dumbo exposed to an alcoholic beverage while he's just a baby. 63. The Rescuers. What drives the conflict of this film is Penny's whole predicament. She gets abused while living with Madame Medusa and is threatened multiple times over a diamond. It's a fun adventure with very dark themes. 62. Romeo and Juliet. Pretty decent and admittedly corny for what it is. The Terraforminator was a highlight of the film. 61. Toy Story. As you know, this movie was a massive achievement in the 3D animation department and revolutionized the film industry as a whole. For the first Pixar movie, they definitely started with a bang, with a classic tale of what a young lad imagines the toys are doing when no one's around. What really hurts the ranking though is that I didn't like how the other toys treated Woody when he was only trying to tell the truth. The worst of all was Mr. Potato Head, who at one point insinuated that Woody be hanged. Man, that is just cruel. 60. Bambi. Fairly thrilling film full of cute animals and a few tragic themes. I like how Bambi is a kid in the first half and he's an adult in the second half after the loss of his mother, showing no bias towards either stage. The wildfire scene was a little depressing. 59. Atlantis: The Lost Empire. Mila Thatch finds the lost continent of Atlantis and meets his wife there. This is a story that's very adventurous, intense and ambitiously written, set to an incredible soundtrack and satisfying sound effects. The pacing is a little clunky and the character designs could be better. 58. The Rescuers Down Under. A sequel that's better than the original, with much better animation and more memorable characters. Wilbur in this movie is more laugh-worthy than Orville in the original, and I found McLeach to be more interesting than Madame Medusa. The interruptions while Bernard tries to propose to Bianca seem too convenient. 57. 101 Dalmatians. A sheer classic titled after the total amount of puppies rescued from the unforgettable Cruella de Vil. Very cute. Also has an excellent cast of characters including the Soul Cat, Sergeant Tibbs. The one thing I didn't like was how Roger and Anita met, it felt too forced. 56. Oliver and Company. Oliver is an adorable kitten whom Jenny loves very much. The death of Bill Sykes is one of the most hardcore in a Disney film, and I love how Fagin is designed like a villain when he really isn't. Overall, another heartwarming film. 55. Lady and the Tramp. A sweet, romantic dog tale. The Tramp is such a cool character and the animation is excellent for its time, using the cinematic aspect ratio to its advantage. I won't comment on the spaghetti scene since you already know the drill. 54. The Jungle Book. This film has the bare necessities to not only make it a delightful one, but also one I can comment on. The ending is great. If Mowgli wouldn't go to the man village under command by either Baloo or Bagheera, let him be guided by a girl. 53. The Grey Mouse Detective. Very underrated, brilliant film. Basil of Baker Street is an excellent hero, Professor Ratigan is an excellent villain, and I love that dog Toby too. You'll have a blast watching it. 52. Peter Pan. The boy who never grew up was designed to be a heartless sociopath, but he still comes across as a likable character in this film. Captain Hook may be one of the funniest villains in any Disney movie. My favorite scenes are where he's being pursued by TikTok the crocodile. 51. The Little Mermaid. A romantic tale that shows the development of a father and daughter relationship. A really charming crab sidekick and a nasty villain that absolutely loses it when her deals are overturned. As an actual human, Ariel is beautiful. 50. Bolt. Thoroughly enjoyable and manages to capture what the producers of a TV show go through in a comical way. So cleverly constructed, yet at times it really confuses me whether I'm watching the real thing or part of the fake show created within this film. I feel like a simpler plot with Bolt and Penny on the adventure together could have worked as well, but as it is, it's an engaging pseudo-superhero film that fills you with adrenaline right from the first act. Mittens and Rhino are excellent characters and the agent is a real prick. 49. Pocahontas. Perhaps inaccurate to actual history, but it doesn't matter. I would suggest that you take this film for what it is and you'll appreciate it more. As entertainment, it's pretty solid. It's a romantic take on the story of Matoaka that brings together people from two entirely different worlds. The animation is really good and the poignant ending also really delivers. 48. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. A really charming film and a great way to signify how Disney's entire movie catalog started. The dwarfs are great, though it's hard for me to remember all their names. The silly song was a highlight of the movie. 47. The Fox and the Hound. One of Disney's first attempts at making a truly emotional film, and it's pretty cool. Amos Slade was a villain who was forced to reform due to how the plot unfolded, and I feel like no other fate for him would have made it all justice. 46. The Lion King. Great movie, but didn't really meet my expectations for quote-unquote one of the best films of all time. In my opinion, it's on par with many other Disney films that are just as awesome. I'm also not really a fan of I Can't Wait to Be King, since it ends up not resonating much with adult Simba, and Scar is also, to put it bluntly, a terrible family member. 45. Pinocchio. This film has proven to me that Pinocchio is so much more than just some puppet whose nose grows when he tells a lie. It's an absolutely fantastic tale that takes some thematic risks that work with the plot very well, and the action is more interesting than in Snow White. Overall, one of the innocent first films in the Disney catalog you will easily appreciate. 44. Brother Bear. I don't understand why this film is so forgotten. I enjoyed it a lot more than what people have given it credit for. I love how Kenai eventually learns to be with Koda, who is a very talkative bear cub, and discovering that Kenai killed Koda's mother before meeting him was a great twist to the plot. All in all, heartwarming. 43. Cars. A massive contrast to the two sequels in the franchise. Has a heartwarming story that wraps itself nicely by the end, if a little cliched. Doesn't appeal to me as much as other Pixar films in my opinion, but it's still an enjoyable ride. 42. Treasure Planet. Fantastic story, uses a lot of CGI which I think goes well with its traditional animation. Jem Hawkins and Long John Silver have a complex relationship with each other. The latter acts like a villain due to his obsession with money, but he really isn't. The rest of the cast is also pretty cool. 41. Beauty and the Beast. Another great movie that I can't find anything unique to compliment it for. It has a great soundtrack and a spectacular third act. Belle is one of the best Disney princesses, but Beast's explosive temper and awkwardness does crawl under my skin a bit. 40. The Emperor's New Groove. Though Cusco might be one of the worst protagonists in any Disney movie, him and all the other characters are hilarious and make this film incredibly fun to watch. It's so comical and fast-paced, and it's interesting how this is another love letter to Latin America. 39. Strange World. A lot better than many people think. Splat is cute, the animation is good, I don't really mind having an openly gay character, and the twist towards the end was something that definitely caught me off guard. They had me for a good 5 minutes thinking Callisto Mal is a villain when she really isn't. I want to watch this film again after it leaves theaters, but as it stands it's still pretty good. The father-son dynamics are definitely hit or miss though. 38. Brave. Pretty solid attempt by Pixar at making a coming-of-age film, with some elements of any film from the main Disney canon. Great soundtrack and great animation, but I bet that working with certain scenes made the animators uncomfortable. I love the fight scene with the two bears. 37. Frozen. It's as solid ice as it gets. There are plenty of memorable characters, the visuals are great, but it's jarring to rewatch because you already know Hans is a villain and Anna jumps the gun and wants to marry him instantly. That's one side of the coin in the recurring theme of love. The other side of the coin is Anna and Elsa's sisterhood, which is sure to tug at your heartstrings. The songs are okay. 36. The Aristocats. An absolutely cute and wonderful film protagonized by a cat mother who gets engaged with the top guy Thomas O'Malley. I love the songs, especially the groovy track in the intro and Everybody Wants to Be a Cat. Edgar as a villain provides a lot of comic relief. 35. Monsters University. An excellent prequel to Monsters Inc. Very fun to watch and demonstrates how there's a lot more to being a monster than just being scary. 34. Toy Story 2. Retains the same sense of fun as the first film, except the toys get more a hold of themselves and some emotional factor is included. The fact that this entire film was created in just 9 months blows my mind. 33. Big Hero 6. In some countries, this film is simply titled Baymax, which already tells you he's going to carry the whole thing. Some of his scenes are amazing and others are more, dare I say, annoying, which makes it hit or miss for me. Regardless, it's great and inventive entertainment the whole way through. Hearing his entire gang evolve into superheroes by the end of the film, and that's epic. 32. Onward. A magical, adventurous movie that focuses on the loss of a family member and the relationship between siblings. You might find this one especially resonant and emotional if you've lost your own father. 31. Lilo and Stitch. The beginning of Stitch's timeline as far as I'm aware. For being an alien life form from outer space, he's really adorable and his friendship with Lilo is cute. He's mainly the one providing the laughs, and Cobra Bubbles is an intimidating character. The film itself has a fantastic premise going for it and it's also visually appealing. 30. Finding Nemo. A very good underwater film, overhyped for all the good reasons. Only complaint is that Dory's well-talk grew to be bothersome. I still love the sheer amount of material there was to work with here, which even resulted in 2 climaxes for the price of 1, and of course, Marlin gets his deserved character development. 29. Frozen 2. It does an excellent job at building upon the story established in the original film, solving every plot thread left hanging, and is generally darker in nature. The soundtrack is phenomenal. It intensifies the scene where Anna temporarily loses Elsa and Olaf. The thing I dislike most about the sequel is that Kristoff is reduced to comic relief. His repeated attempts to propose to Anna are really awkward. 28. Hercules. Like Pocahontas, this is perhaps inaccurate to Greek mythology, but I love what this film has going for it regardless. Sheer entertainment, satisfactory battle scenes, and Hercules has done absolutely heartwarming dates to be with Meg. Hades is also another very funny villain with a very short fuse. 27. Mulan. One that probably shows the most progressiveness of any other Disney film. Mulan is incredibly different from any of the other princesses in the lineup, being much tougher and gets a man to fall for her due to her abilities and success at the Chinese War. Favorite character Mushu, least favorite Chifu. Clearly a misogynist. 26. Aladdin. So much fun. The genie causes his scenes to go absolutely over the top with inventiveness, and even his own song is amazing. Jafar and Iago are a great villain duo. Overall, a very energetic film. 25. Tarzan. There is a lot of depth to our main character here. He has to decide which family to stay with once he finds out he's a human. The animation is gorgeous, Jane is so cute, and her relationship with Tarzan is so sweet. Overall, one of my favorites from the Renaissance era. 24. Encanto. An emotionally complex film that teaches us to look past any superficial qualities of your family members in a much needed bond. Mirabelle is such an endearing character. She doesn't need to be like everyone else to be part of everyone else, and I think that's a very heartwarming message. Our man Bruno also manages to get out of his freak misfit status. 23. Ralph Breaks the Internet. Very much worthy of a sequel to the original, if only slightly inferior due to Ralph's characterization as an insecure man-child. The plot is absolutely perfect in its own composition for the message it conveys, and I don't think the internet gags and product placement is getting in the way too much. Overall, this is such a thrilling movie to see. 22. Finding Dory. No, we don't have to find her, it's more so she's the one finding. This film puts us in an adventure of self-discovery that is a lot crazier than the first film and manages to stand out on its own, including a dramatic emotional scene towards the end. Hank the Septopus is a great new character who provides a lot of the comedy. 21. Moana. I love how Disney mocked some of its older films by having Maui poke fun of Moana throughout the adventure, and he also has great character development. This film has gorgeous animation and amazing sound soundtrack, and especially the ending puts us over the edge. You'll be sure to shed a few tears afterwards. Tamatoa is a funny character too. 20. The Incredibles. Incredibly entertaining, epic and fun to watch, with a very memorable cast of characters. Coming from someone who is not really a fan of superhero movies, it's another topic that Pixar succeeds at appealing to the entire family. 19. The Good Dinosaur. Emphasis on the title, as it's indeed a good version of Dinosaur but released 15 years later. Everything from the visuals, the animation and the atmosphere is absolutely beautiful here. Little dialogue is spoken, which adds to the pathos regarding the importance of family. The scene where Arlo and Spot scare off the crowds is exquisite. 18. Incredibles 2. Even more incredible action with a pleasant change in roles and more discovery of Jack's powers. I would say it does the original perfectly justice and I can't find much to hate about it. 17. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. Quasimodo is, in my opinion, one of the greatest and most endearing characters to come from a Disney film. It's an absolutely poignant and wonderful story that touches on the theme of judging a book by its cover in a much darker and complex way than Beauty and the Beast. Likewise, Frollo is a very complex and evil villain who lusts over the humanitarian gypsy in town, Esmeralda. Needless to say, it's a movie with a lot of spirit, easily making it my favorite one from the Renaissance era. 16. Meet the Robinsons. This movie surprised me when I first saw it in an extraordinary way. It's a fascinating trip to the future that uncovers interesting secrets the longer you watch, and everything culminates with a message from Walt Disney himself to keep moving forward. My mind was blown when I saw it after how much the plot thickened. It's such a cleverly thought out film with colorful visuals and animation, and Bowler Hat Guy seals the show. I could mention several more things to praise about this movie and it would take a while, so let's just keep moving forward. 15. Monsters Inc. A very fun and goofy natured monster movie. The relationship between Sully and Boo is very sweet. Randall and Waternoose are great villains too. 14. Ratatouille. To perfectly sum this one up, not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. This film was so fantastically executed despite the ridiculous innuendo that Linguini created in front of Colette and the bizarre thought of Linguini being zombified by a rat. 13. Soul. One of the most unique films we have seen in the modern age. Just about every aspect brings something new to the table. The concept is pretty ambitious and there is just so much truth and imagination in picturing the game of life. Unfortunately, the emotional impact is not as big as other films Pete Doctor directed. 12. Luca. It starts off as very similar to Little Mermaid, but this time it's like if it were to take a much better direction. It evolves into a very fulfilling adventure complete with marvelous visuals, a great cast of characters and a fantastic ending. I admire Luca's desires to see and discover the world after living his whole life covering his sea monster identity. 11. Zootopia. The underlying lessons here are about the dangers of stereotyping and being who you want to be no matter what animal you are and how many tries it'll take you. All of it boils down into this amazing body cop film that will surely be remembered for years to come. Shakira's Try Everything is an absolute banger of a song, and it's even set to the greatest and most magical credit sequence ever seen in a Disney movie. 10. Wreck-It Ralph. A personal classic from the Disney canon. It was recommended by my sister a few years ago because of the video game theme. The whole film is just so brilliantly thought out and makes it infinitely rewatchable. 9. Raya and the Last Dragon. Boy, where do I begin with this one? Memorable characters? Check. Amazing soundtrack? Check. Colorful and detailed animation? Check. Tugs at your heartstrings? Check. Imaginative setting? Check. This film is absolutely powerful. I especially love the scenes where Sisu runs on raindrops, making for exquisite visual spectacles enhanced by the music. Quite close to a masterpiece. I guess my only complaint is that the theme about trust gets a little too in your face at times. 8. Toy Story 3. A legendary entry to the Toy Story franchise. Thematically a lot darker than the first two films and wraps up Andy's art so fantastically and emotionally. Only nitpick is that the toys once again don't believe Woody after an incident, which makes the argument tacky. I remember as a kid seeing this in theaters, I was frightened by the incinerator scene, which caused the emotional factor of Andy giving his toys to Bonnie to completely fly over my head. 7. Toy Story 4. I'm pretty conflicted on ranking this lower or higher than Toy Story 3 because in my opinion, they're completely on par with each other in terms of wonderfulness. If Pixar made this film, it's because they had an absolutely worthy story to tell. Think about it, the entire franchise was about the toys, not about the people owning those toys. Big difference there. You gotta love this one for the attention to detail in the animation, great new characters, and an even more emotional ending. 6. Tangled. A studio's magnum opus is subjective depending on who you ask, and if you ask me, I gotta hand the title to Tangled, the absolute best Disney princess film of all time. It's like a female version of Hunchback of Notre Dame, Our central character wants to see the world, but the villain prevents her from doing so. Rather than this being a bad thing, I would say it works even better here. Rapunzel is so beautiful, her long hair makes the adventure a lot more interesting, and culminates with a very emotional ending that does not disappoint. There are other great things, but I think I've said enough. 5. Coco. Of course, because of my actual Mexican heritage, I had to put this one high on the list. This movie represents my country perfectly, from featuring the Dia de los Muertos tradition to the music. It possesses such an in-depth storyline and deadly amazing characters that will make you smile all the way through, and of course you can't forget its issues. 4. Wall-E. We're headed into the 4 absolute masterpieces that make the top of the list. Wall-E is such an adorable robot, and his entire adventure through space is set on an atmosphere without much dialogue, but you still understand the plot perfectly the whole way through. The landscape of the Earth in the year 2805 was also fantastically done. If you're looking to get into watching movies regularly, this is a great place to start. 3. Up. An unbelievable amount of heart was put into this one. There are plenty of moments throughout this film where you're sure to shed several tears. You know you're about to see an absolutely moving film when it achieves that in the first 10 minutes. The late Ellie is such an incredible character that everyone should learn from. 2. Inside Out. This was my absolute favorite film for a while. You hear that beautiful piano music that plays during the intro, and you know you're about to have an emotionally devastating experience. Emotionally speaking, this film goes all out with the creativeness, the inventiveness, the attention to detail on how your mind works, and the conveyed message that you need to be sad every once in a while. Do not be afraid to ask for help. That's what sadness does, and the conflict of the film is joy trying to understand that. There was so much material to work with here, to the point where there was even a mobile game inspired by this movie that I played a lot back in the day. I will be on close lookout for the sequel coming out in 2024. It was my favorite film. What? Was there another film that snatched the throne? Did that movie come out this year? Yes, my friend. Oh boy, you're probably gonna hit me for this.
Is it on?
Disney and Pixar's Turning Red is original, funny, and tender.
Our ancestors had a mystical connection with red pandas.
It's one of Pixar's best films.
My whole life I've been her perfect little maid.
It's emotional, stunning, and a joy to behold. Not just about the pain of life, but the very joy of it too.
People have all kinds of sides to them.
Maybe I like this new me. Literally, goosebumps.
Disney and Pixar's Turning Red, rated PG, for your consideration in all categories, including Best Animated Feature.
1. Turning Red. When nobody else wanted to, an all-woman team at Pixar took a stab at a more sensitive theme by making a teenage girl turn into a giant red panda from any strong emotions, normalizing puberty, yet never tried to sugarcoat it here. They were not at all afraid to take an approach to make a movie that is more unique than what you're used to, and executed it perfectly in just about every aspect. The soundtrack, the over-the-top animation, the story, the picturing of Toronto, the character designs. Speak of the devil. They did not need to make May so darn cute, panda or no panda. Such a lovable character. She has an amazing group of friends, a living Giga Chat for a father, and her iconic ability to transform. A concept that is definitely over the top, yet makes it easy to go with the flow. Don't get me wrong, this film definitely has its cringy moments, but this is the only time where Pixar can use that cringiness to their own advantage, and make you feel a connection to your own teenage life, whether you're currently living it, already lived it, or even no matter what your actual gender is. Pixar was based. They took every single risk that making this movie entailed, and people's receptions were absolutely polarizing, which only further proves how unique this movie is and how some people don't like change. I like to see cute and adorable things on my screen. This film is basically that from head to toe, and it's simply your loss if you don't, because for me, it might remain in my #1 spot for a long time. It'll be really hard for anything else to be able to top this. Because of how much I love this movie, I got some merch. No Turning Red fan can call themselves a Turning Red fan without their fluffy red panda plushie to sleep with every night. I have frames with stickers on my wall, which I think are a really nice detail, and I also even have a shirt. If I get money, I want to start collecting items inspired by the movie, since I don't see myself losing interest in it anytime soon. I hope they make a sequel, or at the very least to do anything else with the characters. That would be lovely. So anyway, that's it for today's video. Are you excited for Pixar's Elemental coming out next year? Are you upset that I didn't put Chicken Little in the #1 spot? Let me know in the comments. This was really fun to put together, but ranking these was also really difficult because I pretty much love most of them, and these were ranked based on what I would rather watch, more than anything. Do you agree with my list? What other movies are your favorites? Let me know in the comments as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.